Hi, so in today's video I'm going to go through the decal kit install for the BMW S1000rr M. So you'll see here, this here is typically how you will receive the kit, and it'll just have a printout of the decal layout. So whenever you open it up, it's helpful to separate all the decals because altogether there's quite a few, and it'll just make sure that you can sort of efficiently work through it. So a couple of things before you get started with that is it's just good to have a nice tidy workbench that you can lay everything out. It's not untidy or dirty or anything like that. And then same with your motorbike and the surrounding area. You would want to go through and clean all of the fairings, the surrounding areas, with the likes of an isopropyl alcohol or similar, with a good clean cloth. I do advise to clean the entire bike all in one go, just in case you forget to clean, say you get to the belly pan and it can be typically more greasy and dusty and that there type of thing, or the likes of the nose where there's more insect marks. So cleaning the bike, having a good tidy workbench and surrounding area with the motorbike is a good start. So I'm going to clean the motorbike now, and then we will get started and I'll go through the process of how I install the decals on the bike, and hopefully it's helpful for yourselves doing it at home. Thanks. So you can see now that I've got all the decals separated out. We have the tail in the top left, the main side fairing pieces, the tank, belly pan, front fender, and front nose. Then I have the tools that I have to assist me with the install. So obviously there's isopropyl alcohol and there's the cloth for cleaning the bike. And then I have the heat gun, and it helps in areas where there's some curvature where the decal want to, the vinyl and laminate will want to start to bunch up, and the heat gun just softens it, and it really makes a big difference. So if you don't have the likes of a heat gun, the likes of a hairdryer can be helpful as well. Yeah, it is just it makes the difference between getting the decal on without any creases. But in saying that, I don't use it until it's necessary. If you start to use it, it'll soften the decal, it'll easily stretch and lose its shape, and pretty much all of these pieces have been templated to fit the fairings accurately. Yeah, and then with the masking tape, if I've got individual brand logos, and say if I'm putting them diagonally on the belly pan or I'm putting them on the tail, I might want to make sure that they're nice and parallel. So I'll use the masking tape as a guide to make sure that they're all aligned and the spacing is even, because you can do pretty well just visually, but whenever you use the tape you're really sort of creating that feel safe. And then the last couple of tools is I have a knife which has, you just want to make sure there's a good sharp blade, just if there's any holes that are required to cut out to allow for quick release fasteners. And then with the squeegee, I typically use sort of my fingers and thumbs for applying the decals, just so you can sort of feel if there's different change in the shape, whereas the squeegee would sort of glide over the top and then you might have a air trapped underneath. But if it's a nice flat surface like a belly pan piece, the squeegee is good for just sort of gliding it on. Alright, and yeah, I'll get started on the install now. So I'll typically start off with a relatively straightforward piece to get sort of warmed up and used to it. And just looking at the bike, the tail is a good area to start. So with each piece, see this sort of shape here, and it'll identify that it's going on the left hand side of the tail. So I will, before I do anything with it, I'll put it into the area and figure out, right, where's it supposed to locate. So then whenever I figured that out, See, I was thinking it was down at the edge, but it's actually more so up hugging this centerpiece. So whenever I go to apply this type of piece, kind of the critical area is this line here. We don't want to have it too far forward, because whenever the rider is on the bike and he sits back or leans in for a corner, the leathers might rub and it will lift the decal, and it'll make it look, you know, pretty secondhand quickly. So I'd like to just have a bit further back. So I would take some of the backing paper off towards the back, so I can locate where I want this to go. So I want to hold it around there, get it, and make sure that it's looking accurate. Now get that applied in place. So now we've got the right sort of position, location. So now, and this piece is pretty flat, so you know, can just use the squeegee. Then we'll go over and do the same to the other side. So that there was pretty quick and easy. You see, if I had taken all of the backing paper off, and even, you know, I had a good vantage point trying to touch down. If it touched down and it wasn't quite right, it would have become very a lot more tricky to deal with and correct, and just a little bit more frustrating. So you kind of think, oh, take all the backing paper off, try and do it quickly, but you end up costing yourself time. I like to get sort of as square on in front as possible. So with the likes of the nose and the tail, I'd like to stand directly in front or directly behind. And then as well, with the likes of these two pieces, you can kind of see that, yep, they're the same. And then this piece here, which is symmetrical, it just sits in the middle. So for what I do with these is I remove a bit of the backing paper from the center, probably just about 10 mil either side. So same thing, you're not really dealing with too much, but I'll try and get it located centrally. And then same thing, if I had to reposition this, it's just a matter of doing that. Oh yeah, and then obviously make sure that your fingers or your hands are washed as well. I know I tend to hold on to the decals and it's, you know, touching the adhesive back in. And if you see that this is kind of coming in and not really going location you want, because it's a fairly thin place, you can sort of manipulate it and lead it out to get yourself that 1 or 2 more mil, just to get it perfect with where you want it to go. Alright, and then now we've just got a small range of decals. This here's nice carbon fiber fairings. So just cut them pretty close around each logo, just so it still shows off the carbon fiber. So What you can do with the likes of these is just touch them lightly into place. So this here's where it could, you could or might want to use the masking tape, but it's just a pretty small area, so the masking tape that I have, I probably wouldn't be able to get it fitted in. With me standing directly behind as well, I've got a pretty good viewpoint on, them being central and being level. So I'll have a look at that there and see, am I, pretty happy with the spacing, how it looks, and yeah, that there looks good to me. Actually, yeah, it looks pretty cool actually. Yeah, so that's the tail done. We'll get moved on to the next step. For the tank, we've got quite a few pieces for it. On this particular bike, there's a couple that we can't actually apply. The most noticeable being the M. So it will go here where the tank grip is. So if you maybe, obviously tank grips can be really good, and sometimes you can get them in clear. So yeah, if you were really keen to have that, then that there would be the sort of thing that you could do. But that's okay that this one here won't be on. And then same with the centerpiece, there's a bit of a tank protector here, so you could locate it and trim it off where needed, or you could just wait the future. Maybe you're gonna put new pads or grips onto the tank in future, and you could apply these first, so you could just save them. So then we have these two here. So this one locates here, and this one is here. It can be a bit of a jigsaw puzzle. There's quite a few that go on the tank, but this one here is pretty clear for where it has to get located, and then whenever it's in place, then it makes this one here pretty easy. So I would probably find the nicest spot for this one. Similar to the tail, the way we did it, just remove a small part of the backing paper. And you can see with the curves and little ridge down the center, the squeegee wouldn't work well on this. So that's why I would just hold it out and then just run my thumb down through it. And then applying a good bit of pressure, making sure there's no air that's going to get trapped, and it's applied good and firmly. So typically, going by sort of the rule of thumb that we had in these other ones, we would want this to line up, so we would apply this back here, but because there's a bit of curvature on the tank, or quite a bit, this could sort of waver, so I would maybe be more inclined, it doesn't matter if this is, a few mil to the left, to the right, so I'd be more inclined to try and make sure that I've got this perfect. And I didn't pull this any particular direction or anything like that. I just followed my thumb around where the decal wanted to naturally lead. So whenever I go to the other side and do it too, they should end up in nice identical locations. So sometimes as well there'll be another decal supplied where we have it in here. On this particular kit, I don't think I have one, but it's fairly straightforward, just a small little sticker in there. Yep, so not applying this, which goes on the center, and then also the M that goes on the side. Yeah, and if you're looking at these and you sort of want a bit more guidance, a good thing to sort of, as a bit of a reminder, because this is sort of replicating the M decal kit on the road bike. If you just look it up, sort of Google Images is your best friend for seeing lots of different angles of where these are on the road or street bikes. Moving on to the front nose, we've got a few different pieces. We've got the number plate for the screen. We have this large piece as well, and then also the replica headlight. So we'll just get the replica headlight on first. So pretty small piece. Get down in position, make sure it's in the right location. The BMW is actually a really nice bike to apply the decal kit to. There's a lot of, like, you know, it's a very nice shaped bike, but it's got relatively flat surfaces as well. And then for this, it's good to get it into position and sort of check the shape of the fairings, similar to the tail pieces earlier. Make sure, you know, you're not too far to the outside over here, and then you can see it's gonna overlap, so that's not the right place for it. So you want to take it in so it's nice and neat to this ridge on the intake. And you'll see that I normally guide my thumb up the middle. If there's any curves, if I go and get one side on perfectly and it's been nice and easy, it might just accumulate and put all the hard work, like just double the effort on the other side, and you're just fighting it. Whereas if I sort of split the difference down the center, as you go and apply, you can sort of spread that any buildup of vinyl wanting to bunch up. So you can see this sort of area where there is just a few ripples. So that's whenever I would use the heat gun. You can see there the pretty much almost disappeared. Doesn't always be that easy, but as I say, this bike is a nice one to work with. And then now for the screen. So obviously we've got these bolt holes here, but rather than taking it off, if I took this off and took it to the bench and I tried to apply this, it will be wanting to slide around, whereas here it's fixed on the motorbike, and we can remove backing paper down the center and we can get it applied in place, and we can probably get it about 70% applied, and then we'll take it off and we'll deal with finishing it off. So we'll just do the 3 small tears. And again, just standing directly square on in front, just to help with your sort of reference points and getting it as accurate as possible. And again, if you don't get it right first time, believe me, it happens to me frequently, but I would rather take it off and retry than look at the bike and know that it's off by, you know, 5 mil or more. So that looks pretty good to me. So you can see I've barely used the heat guns so far on this bike, just because it does soften it, and you know, if it ends up stretching, if we've got a straight line here with a number, that can quickly look wavy, and so yeah, I just avoid it until I need it. So I'm going to get the screen off, and I will show you how I finish it off on the bench in a second. Okay, so you can see that I ended up finishing off this side, and I've cut out the little hole. So I'll show you how I do it on this side. The screen was actually fixed to the bike with 2 other bolt holes at the top. So what you could have actually done was just remove this, apply this, put the fastener back in, remove this fastener, apply it, and then you know, job done. But sometimes I like taking the screens off because there might just be a couple of mil excess, and rather than it wanting to lift over time, I would prefer to just get the knife and just finish the job off nicely. So I just make sure that it's all lifted, and then just on the edge, as long as you have a good sharp blade, it'll just clean it up. So now there's, you know, there's no edges that want to lift. And then, well, rather than show you how I did that hole, I will remove the backing paper and apply this, and I'll show you the process then. Actually, it's tough enough on the other side. I had to use the heat gun quite a bit. As I say, I try and try and make as much progress as I can before using the heat gun. So you can see it's kind of bunched up. I sort of tried to rush it and just apply it all down quickly. So what I'm going to have to do is just lift up some of it. And I don't normally lift up a little bit. I'll kind of lift a row. So the area that wanted to bunch up, I'll try and sort of spread out that load. So that's much tidier now, and you can see that the decal doesn't overlap. Here it's probably about 4 mil in, and over here it was over about 2 mil. So overall I would have been off a few mil, but really I think that's within sort of reasonable tolerance. So now for the holes, for the bolt holes, just find where it is and press on it so you can visually see. And you just take your knife, and rather than trying to cut out around, you just put the blade of the knife into it, and if it is a good sharp blade, it should sort of glide around pretty nice and clean. And that way you're not scratching in this case the screen, or if it was the fairings, with a quick release fastener. And there you can see that it's it's a super clean hole. So now you can get that back onto the bike and onto the next part. Now onto the front fender. So we have these pair, one for each side, and then also there's just the BMW that sits in the middle at the front, which is pretty straightforward. So the way I typically like to apply the fork yard parts of the fender is removing this strip of backing paper out of this side, so I can check that this line and these holes line up with the bolt holes available. Hopefully my arm isn't in the way. So we just get it touched on into place, and now that is the good thing as well. The backing paper, it helps give it a bit of structure, so it holds everything together. So now if you really wanted, you could finish applying this piece. So there is quite a bit of a drop off, so you actually want to focus on trying to feed the vinyl down into that area. I would probably choose this more so than just heating and trying to more so wrap it. Just apply plenty of pressure. I might actually make this into the two separate pieces. That would just make it a lot more straightforward in future. You can see there's a couple of air bubbles here. There is air release adhesive, so if it's not really firmly on, the air can escape. Otherwise you would just lift it up again and get the air out. I've just my decal is longer than what's actually necessary. At the time I templated the road bike fender. So what I would normally do in this case, there's about 10mm excess, so you wouldn't just leave that. So with my knife I would just trim a couple of mil higher than the actual fender. So it just took that amount off. So you might come across cases where if your fairings are a different brand or something like that, there might be a little bit of trimming required, but it's just at this stage very difficult to have templates for, you know, multiple fairing brands for the same bike across the range of common bike models. But that was fairly straightforward. And whether you do it at this stage or you come back to it at the end, it's just worth doing, because now there's no dust or rubber or anything else going to get clogged up on it, and gradually start to make it look untidy. Yeah. All right, so I'll get these other couple of pieces on, and then we'll get moved on to the side fairing. Onto the main side fairing piece. It's quite large, a little bit flimsy. There's a few like thin areas, and then as well with this area because of the wing. Just getting a good look at it. There is the quick release fastener there. So what I would do is, normally I get decal applied as much as possible up to the point where it has to go over where a quick release fastener is, and I'll take it off just momentarily, get the decal applied in place, cut out the hole, get the fastener back in. But this is really held together well. There's a lot of different fasteners, so I think I'll get it off now, or get the fastener out. So rather than choosing an end to remove some of the backing paper, for this size of piece I would remove a strip out of the middle, especially on this here particular one. We've got the small cutout, so that there could be a nice way to identify the right location. It's a fairly big flimsy piece, but the good thing is the fairing's surface is relatively flat. so that's looking okay for there. Looks like we've just got a little bit to work with. Maybe like a little bit higher, so you can see I'm kind of leading it up the ways to try and make it go that way. And we can just leave that there for now. It's actually quite far off. Yeah. All right. Well, in this case, which the sort of quick fix, if you wanted to do it, you could cut it here and you could just simply lift this up into the perfect location. So I'll just tack it into place, see if we can get this where we want it. Well, that's it rectified down here. Now, just wondering, right, well, is there somewhere else where it's badly off? Because that's quite a thin strip, you can sort of lead it whatever direction you want. much better. That's what you get whenever you try to sit down, get comfortable and not get a good proper look at it. So normally if I heat excess vinyl that has went over an edge, I normally go to the corner and get it applied first, because that's where the source of where it'll want to bunch up. So it looks like here I'm gonna have to trim about 5mm there, and then I've got excess just underneath here. So there's about 10mm there, and to be honest, I've tested this on these fairings before and it was 100%, you know, so I could be 5mm out here and it's just offset the whole thing. But I just kind of wanted to show you that, you know, I tried to apply it first time badly out here. I end up removing it, putting it in. I've trimmed here. I'm going to trim this to make it slightly bigger. But it's not the end of the world. You know, it's very hard to get the perfect position because we've got, you know, this other fairing area. So sort of getting it in the exact spot every time is just, it's just a little tricky, especially with the road race bike fairings. And try not to go too hard on the knife either, just enough to get through the vinyl. There, and that there's, again, just a little bit of excess, but it's tidied it up. And you know, that there's looking good and tidy on all of the edges now. Almost forgot the hole for the quick release. So just find where it is. Yep, so now that's nice and tidy. We haven't tried to cut around it. It's very difficult to cut a very nice clean circular hole. Onto this other side frame piece, we just have this one that locates here. This is the first time I've actually come across one where it splits in this location. Normally it's one continuous sort of plastic piece. So I'm just looking at the location where the bolts go, and it's quite a decent step in. Yeah. It's just sort of a square edge. So, and then similar with this one. So you'll see as well, if we go to apply these now, this one here is moved quite a bit. It's quite minimal. It's sitting in fairly neutral position. But if this was gonna like open out and create a 10mm gap, you wouldn't want to try and apply this while they're both like that. You would actually start while they're held in place. So I think we will just get it applied in place and do the trimming where necessary. All right. Just coming in a couple of mil. get that one after. This one here is quite deep. I do feel like I would want to try and cut it out just on the inside. Alright, so that's that one. That's okay there. I will get this bolt back into place, but I might actually do the same sort of thing as here, and just trim it out. Obviously I mentioned over on this other point where you don't really want to have to do that because it can be hard. It's easier to put the blade on the inside and just trim around and it's nice and tidy. But yeah, if there's quite a square step down in, it might be better to just trim it out, similar to this. All right, I'll get that done and then move on to the belly pan. Now we're on to the belly pan. We've got the last few pieces. So we have the likes of this large piece for here, this other one here, the race number here just with a white 10mm border, and then we just have a few individual brand logos, which is just going to fill out this area. So normally I would take the belly pan off if I have, you know, one large piece. It's pretty tricky because it's sweeping down underneath the bike and it's, you know, it's not at a nice working height. But because these pieces are more individual and they're not very big and the surface on the belly pan is nice and flat, I'm confident that we can apply these in decals nicely. So just going to remove part of the backing paper. Just take a little bit more on. You kind of want a good bit of the area to grip so the angle of it is less likely to change. So, and then this is why I like to supply the decals cut out. It means you can pick it up and you can go and line it up to the fairing and see that there's the accurate place. If it came all rolled up as one piece, that might seem nice, but then you're actually going to have to do more work to make it suitable for you to apply. Kind of holding it in the direction that we want to go. I think the number here is quite big, so there's going to be some areas that need trimmed. I'll probably just take note actually in future not to make numbers any bigger than what I have here. That one's quite deep. It's almost one that you'd nearly want to cut around there. But I would maybe be inclined to just leave it like that. It's no harm with it there the way it is. Just finding where the edge is. All right, so a little bit of work required there for that number, but as I say, I'll take note of that, make sure that I try not to make the numbers any bigger, because don't want to, you know, we had to do a bit of trimming up here and there was a bit of trimming on the front fender. Really don't want to be expecting that to be required every time. Just the last little bit now are these. So this here's where I would use the likes of the masking tape. So there's sort of different angles flowing down through here. There's, you know, the likes of RR, and the 24 is very similar. So in this sort of case, I would try and get same sort of angle, bring it down, maybe just, because we'll have two rows, we'll split the difference. Now I've got an angle. Now I just want to see where we're going to put them. Don't want to leave it too close to this decal at the back. I'm more inclined to put that one up here. Just touch it in place. You can even do things like, you know, using small strips. Say there's a lot of different logos and you have like a strip in there, and you know, the next one up here, if the fairing, if the belly pan continued, so you could have equal spacing as well. So you can take a step back, you can have a look at that, and it feels like a nice even sort of balance. We've got this decal here, then there's a bit of a even gap between all of these, and that there looks pretty good to me. So I'm happy with that. So now I'll apply these properly, and so for the likes of keeping everything parallel, that little bit of masking tape just put any of the sort of question marks out. So yeah, great little help. And that's it. If you're doing this install and you're watching this video through, if you have any queries, or you felt like yeah, that was good, or even more importantly, if you'd like a bit more assistance or knowledge in future on something that I sort of went quickly through, please feel free to let me know. I always wanting to improve these and just make it as easy as possible for people who are installing the kits themselves. I'm not like a trade qualified at installing signage or anything like that. It's just over the years applying graphics to motocross bikes growing up as a kid, and just having an interest in, you know, trying to present the bike as nice as possible. And yeah, hopefully even if there's just one or two tips in this video that made it a little easier, more helpful, then yeah, that's brilliant. So thank you, and yeah, we'll go from there. Bye bye.